Hi, my name is Pete Dunlap, and today I'm going to be delivering a presentation called Digital Detangler. So one thing that I think a lot of us are struggling with is stress and the inability to detach from work. According to the US Travel Association, we're experiencing the lowest levels of vacation time in 40 years. And Glassdoor did a survey and found that 61% of people are working at some point during their vacations. Also, people are working outside of work. Some 30% of us are working on weekends. And according to Business News Daily, 60% of us check our emails outside of normal work hours. And stress is rising, according to Carnegie Mellon, between 10 and 30% in the past 30 years. So where is all this stress coming from? First, the internet changed. And so a lot of times what happens is you feel bored or despondent or sad, and then your phone gives you something and it makes you happy or amuses you in some sense, and then eventually you feel bored and despondent or listless again, and you go back through the loop over and over again. And so once you run through this cycle over and over, you start to form a habit. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, these are all platforms which allow other people to post things. And so there's always something new that you're missing. Even just during this talk right now, you're probably missing things that are being posted onto the internet. Also, there's a variable reward system set up. You never know when you're going to get an email that's great, but you also never know when you're going to get an email that's terrible. And so there's this variable system when you never know what's going to happen. So just to give you a sense of how pervasive this is, I had a typical client who I was working with, and she was spending 25 days per year, like 24-hour days, on her phone on the Facebook app. This little bit of time here and there really begins to add up. So we've talked about how the internet has changed, and technology companies have been a part of that. But now I want to talk about how we are scattered. So we spend a lot of time in our everyday lives doing multitasking. There was a study that looked at multitasking under 3 different conditions: during free time, while studying for a final, and while we're writing a report. And in all 3 cases, the youngest generation was multitasking the most. This has caused what the University of California Irvine professor Gloria Mark calls faster interrupted work. And when you do this work, you experience a higher workload, you experience more stress, higher frustration, more time pressure, and more effort to get the same amount of work done. So what are some practical solutions for this? We've talked about stress and why it's a problem, and now we've talked about some of the causes of it between the internet changing and us multitasking. So how can you do that? We're going to talk about your phone first. How do you set your phone up such that you will not check it as often? The first thing you can do is have a tools-only home screen. You just have maybe your flashlight, your calendar, maybe your text messaging. Number 2 is using a launcher where you type to launch apps. And what this does is it disrupts your muscle memory of opening up the same app every time when you immediately go onto your phone. Also use the Do Not Disturb settings. Both Android and iOS have this as a built-in feature where you can set times and you can schedule it when you're not going to be available. So now I'm going to cover some ways in which you could alter your laptop use. The first way is when you go to YouTube, switch off the autoplay. It's up in the top right-hand corner. The next one is called Privacy Badger. And what Privacy Badger does is it attempts to automatically disrupt communication which is tracking you across the internet. Up next is Scroll Stopper. This is actually a Chrome extension that I personally built. What Scroll Stopper does is it allows you to go to popular social media sites, but only spend a little bit of time on them. So we've talked about ways to alter your work environment, ways to alter your digital devices, and now I want to talk about ways to alter yourself. The first thing I want to talk about is cultivating gratitude. And there are a few ways or practices I recommend for practicing gratitude. Number 1 is really what I'd call like the Thanksgiving option, just writing a list of things you're thankful for. The second option would be to write a gratitude letter to someone. And this is almost like a yearbook entry for an adult. People who are grateful tend to experience less loneliness and fewer doctor visits. They exercise more often, they have immune support benefits, and they're even happier. The next way to alter yourself is through the use of something called mindfulness. Mindfulness means paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. There are 2 great apps that allow you to do that. So you have Calm.com, which is what I use, and there's another one called Stop, Breathe, Think. We've talked about being stressed about stress. We've talked about why that is, multitasking, and then we've talked about some practical solutions. Now I want to drive home 2 final points. Number 1 is that the people you love deserve you showing up for them. And the best way to show up for people is by being ruthless with your environment, but compassionate with yourself. Thanks for your attention today, and I appreciate you going through my conversation about digital mindfulness and taking a critical look at the way you're spending your time online. If you're interested in finding out more about this company, Digital Detangler, the corporate offerings that I have, please visit my website at www.digitaldetangler.com.